Hello everybody, this is Yasmin from Yarkspiri fantasyart.com and welcome to another video tutorial. For this week's video request, the request was that I actually paint a couple, a werewolf couple, and that I essentially draw them in their transformed state. In order to actually be able to work on this painting, the first thing I needed to do was to look at some reference material, so I did do that, and I looked up in Google, just simply typed in Google wolf and packs to see how they actually interact a bit, and also to get some idea of the features that I was going to actually paint into these characters. Now, as you can see right now, I'm actually only working on the male character. The reason why I'm starting off with this character first is that I want to have the female character actually leaning in towards him. So it's very important that I actually start off initially with this character and then work in the other character to help make it fit. You will also notice that for this painting, I'm actually doing not the full body, but I'm actually doing a more close-up portion for this. The design needed to have essentially more of a focus on the two characters and less on the background elements. So for this reason, I came into the shot so that I can focus more on the details. Since it's actually the interactions that are more important, it makes sense to have more of a close-up shot so you could see more of the characters and more of the information that I was going to paint in later. So right now I've actually started adding in some of the basic lighting, and what I've done is I've actually added a saturation layer above all my other layers, and I'm tweaking the color of that saturation layer to fit the color palette that I'm going for. As I'm working on the color palette, I am also looking at my color wheel, which I'm using as a rough guide to figure out some of the colors that I'll actually be adding in. Now, similar to last week's video tutorial, I am using a textured brush, the exact same textured brush actually, for the actual details of this painting. I initially started off the rough design, however, with my flat brush that I had customized a while back. The flat brush is essentially just a really simple brush that I used a marquee tool to create. And the reason why I started off with using that brush is that it allows me essentially a bit more freedom, and it keeps me a bit more loose because I can't control 100% how I'm going to paint actually the information in there. So it gives me a bit of more of a randomness to the overall painting. So right now I'm actually working on the male werewolf first, once again, because he has to have limbs that are actually wrapping around the second character. It's easier if I start off with him and then move on to the female werewolf later on. This entire painting took approximately 4 to 5 hours to complete, so once again it was a very short painting, and that included all the detail information that I added in afterwards as well. So this painting was not very long to actually complete, but it did have a lot of detail work that was needed. So I was able to focus more on those details by essentially zooming into the characters a bit more. So as I'm working on the muscle features, I am actually once again looking at some reference material to keep these things in mind. I'm looking at other people's interpretation of different werewolf creatures to get a rough idea, and I'm applying my knowledge of anatomy and mixing the two to come up with the design. Now, since this arm is further in the background, I am trying to keep it essentially lighter in color. Now, since the hand is moving more forward though, you will see later on in this painting that I will actually darken up the details in that hand to make it look more like it's coming towards the viewer. Working on the rib cage, I'm just working up the contrast. Essentially I'm adding information and then toning it back almost immediately to help give it more of a uniform look. Now, since the legs are mostly in shadow, I know I don't have to add as much information. Now, that information will depend on the lighting, and I did intend when I was working on this to add a bit more lighting in the kneecap and the upper leg on the one side, so you will see me add much lighter colors later on in the video as well to help emphasize those details and that lighting. Now, since some of the lighting would also appear behind the leg, I did add that in just to help make that leg pop out also from the background. Working on the face, making sure that the face looks like it's part of, but still separate from the rest of the body, so it's not blending in too much. Although I'm painting the female in without actually adding some clothing in the chest area, I do this initially just to make sure I get the proper proportions, and then I add the clothing elements above that just to help make sure that they are correct. So I didn't want to have the female werewolf to be too skinny, so I wanted her to actually be more buff than a normal female would, simply because of the transformation that may have occurred to her muscles and her anatomy. It essentially tones up her body and essentially makes her more of a predator. So they both have torn clothes, and I'm just working on that arm. I didn't like having it fully extended, so I brought it in. That also helps draw in the eye towards the characters a bit more by doing that. I'm just working on the hair a bit, making sure that the hair does look very messy and not kept, and adding in the second hand. This image is almost completed, and make sure you stay for the end of this video, because I do actually have a voting system that should be in place by the end of this video, so you should be able to just click on the options. I've included video requests as well as some other ideas I've been planning, so make sure you choose the one that you would like to see for next week's video tutorial. So I keep on turning on and off the saturation layer just to check to make sure I have enough contrast in all the characters, and I'm just adding some cast shadow now near the head area to help show a bit more depth and help tie in all the elements. And I'm going in now actually with the default round brush. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you and take care.